I never thought a single moment could change everything in my family. It started on a quiet Sunday afternoon, one of those days that feels ordinary, almost boring, until something happens that makes you question everything you thought you knew. I was in the living room, my hands full of laundry, when my daughter, Emma, peeked around the corner with that curious look she always gets before asking a question that makes your chest tighten. "Dad, why did you hug her like that?" she asked, her voice small but trembling, like she had just glimpsed something she wasn't supposed to. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know what to say. The words caught in my throat, because in that instant, I realized Emma had seen something I hadn't expected her to see. Something that would make her question me and my wife. And speaking of my wife, she was standing just behind me, motionless, frozen, her eyes wide, lips parted slightly, like she'd been caught in her own moment of shock. I could feel the tension radiating off her, and suddenly the air in the room felt thick, heavy, almost suffocating. My mind raced, trying to figure out how to explain what Emma had seen without shattering the fragile sense of normalcy we'd always clung to. But every explanation I could think of felt hollow, empty, and maybe even dangerous. Emma tilted her head, still staring, and I noticed the way her little hands gripped the doorway, knuckles white. There was a seriousness in her eyes that made my stomach twist. She wasn't just asking about a hug. She was asking about trust, about loyalty, about something deeper that I couldn't quite put my finger on yet. And the longer the silence stretched, the louder my own heartbeat became, echoing in my ears like a warning bell. I wanted to reassure her. I wanted to brush it off as nothing, a misunderstanding, a trick of a moment. But something in her gaze told me this wasn't something we could just laugh off. This was a question that demanded answers. And the truth, well, the truth was messy, complicated, something I wasn't sure I was ready to confront, not with my daughter, not with my wife, not even with myself. I glanced back at my wife, hoping for some kind of reaction, some hint of what she was thinking. But her expression didn't give anything away. She looked almost trapped, like she had just stepped into a room where she couldn't escape the consequences of what had just happened. And for a split second, I wondered if she was more afraid of me noticing her fear than I was of the question itself. Emma took a hesitant step forward, eyes never leaving mine, and whispered, "I don't understand. Why did you do that?" And in that moment, I realized something. This was no ordinary afternoon. This was the kind of moment that changes everything. The kind of moment that cracks the perfect little world you've built with your family and leaves you staring into something you weren't prepared to face. And the truth was waiting for us, just on the other side of that question. Looking back, our life had seemed normal, or at least, as normal as a busy family of three could be. I'm a graphic designer, mostly working from home, which meant I got to see every little milestone Emma reached, every scraped knee, every bedtime story read with too much drama. My wife, Sarah, was a schoolteacher, patient, kind, the kind of person everyone trusted immediately. On paper, we had the perfect little family, a cozy house, a dog that shed everywhere, Sunday pancakes that never turned out quite right, and a routine that felt safe. But lately, something had been off. Small things, nothing I could put my finger on exactly. Sarah had started disappearing into long phone calls that she'd brush off when I asked. Sometimes I'd catch her staring at the wall for minutes at a time, like she was listening to something or someone just out of reach. Emma noticed too. She'd ask why Mommy looked sad sometimes, and Sarah would smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. I tried to tell myself it was just stress, work, nothing serious. But the way she hesitated that Sunday, frozen behind me, made me realize there might be more beneath the surface. I remember the day that hug happened. I'd just come back from picking up Emma from a friend's birthday party. She had invited me into the backyard to meet one of her mom's colleagues who was visiting, a woman I'd seen a handful of times at school events. We exchanged polite smiles, a few jokes. Then, without thinking, I hugged her. It was meant to be comforting, casual. But apparently, it wasn't seen that way. Emma had been standing just out of sight, watching it all, and my wife had been watching me too. Our marriage had always been solid, or so I thought. We laughed together, argued occasionally, but always resolved it. We'd shared secrets, dreams, and a few too many late-night snacks in the kitchen. But that moment, the hug, suddenly threw all of it into question. I couldn't shake the way Emma's eyes had followed my every movement. or the way Sarah's face had gone pale the second she realized what she'd witnessed. It made me start noticing things I'd ignored before. Whispered phone calls that stopped when I walked in, text messages deleted too quickly, sudden plans that didn't include me. My mind spun with possibilities, but I kept them to myself because I didn't want to alarm Emma. She was only 7, and kids see things in ways adults can't always predict. But her question that afternoon, "Why did you hug her like that?" had opened a door I couldn't close, and the silence that followed was deafening. I could feel Sarah's gaze on me, heavy, almost accusing. Emma was staring, waiting for an answer, for a truth that I wasn't sure I was ready to give. And me? I was caught in a strange, unfamiliar place where the family I thought I knew seemed suddenly fragile, like a vase teetering on the edge of a shelf. I realized then that whatever this was, it wasn't just about a hug. Something else had been simmering beneath the surface for a while, something that threatened to tear the careful little world we'd built apart. And the longer I stood there, the more I wondered, had I missed the signs all along? And just as I was about to speak, Emma whispered again, her voice trembling, "Daddy, is everything okay?" And in that question hung a weight I wasn't sure I could answer. The air in the living room felt heavier than ever. Emma was clutching her favorite stuffed bunny like a shield, and I could see the way her little shoulders trembled. Sarah hadn't moved a muscle since that moment, and every second of silence made my stomach twist tighter. I tried to speak, to find the words that would calm both of them, but my own mind was a whirlwind. "Emma, it was just a hug," I started, keeping my voice soft, careful. "Nothing more than that." But she shook her head, eyes wide. "It didn't look like just a hug. Why were you holding her so close?" Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd hugged her to be polite, to comfort someone I barely knew, and somehow it had been twisted into something else in my daughter's mind. But what unsettled me most wasn't Emma's misunderstanding. It was the way Sarah's lips pressed together, her expression unreadable, like she was holding back something bigger. Something I didn't know. "Mommy, why are you staring like that?" Emma asked, her voice rising, a mixture of fear and confusion. Sarah finally moved, slowly, deliberately, sitting down on the edge of the sofa, her hands clenched in her lap. The calmness she usually carried was gone, replaced by a tension that made me uneasy. She didn't answer, just looked at me, her eyes sharp, almost calculating. My mind raced. Had she seen something more than Emma did? Something in that hug I didn't realize? I could feel the walls closing in, the ordinary afternoon slipping through my fingers. Questions bubbled up, unspoken. Had I done something wrong? Had I betrayed a trust one didn't even know existed? And if there was something between Sarah and this woman I hadn't seen, how long had it been going on? Emma's voice broke through again, small but urgent. "Please, tell me what's happening." And in that instant, I realized the fragile balance of our home had been shattered. What had been a normal day, a simple hug, had revealed cracks I hadn't even noticed. The worry in my daughter's eyes, the unreadable expression on my wife's face. It was a storm waiting to hit, and I was standing right in the middle of it, unsure which way it would strike. The tension stretched on, thick and suffocating, until finally Sarah whispered, almost to herself, "You don't understand." And in those 3 words hung a secret, something I wasn't prepared for, but something that was about to turn our lives upside down. Her words lingered in the room like a shadow I couldn't shake. "You don't understand," she repeated, barely above a whisper, but the weight behind them made my heart pound. Emma clutched my sleeve, and I could feel her small body trembling, like she sensed the storm brewing around us even if she didn't know the cause. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Sarah, tell me," I urged, my voice low but firm. "Please, I need to know what's going on." She didn't answer right away. Instead, she stared past me, eyes fixed somewhere I couldn't see. The silence stretched, and in that emptiness, every sound in the house, the ticking clock, the hum of the refrigerator, felt amplified, almost like it was conspiring to remind me how fragile everything had become. I wanted to reach out, to hold her, to somehow bridge the distance that had appeared between us, but something in the way she held herself kept me back. Emma, sensing the tension, whispered again, "Mommy, are you angry?" Her voice wavered, so small and vulnerable that it felt like it could break under the pressure of the truth waiting to be spoken. Finally, Sarah's eyes met mine. There was a storm in them, hurt, fear, maybe even guilt. and it made me shiver. I, I can't just explain it like this, she murmured, voice trembling. Not yet. Not with her here. Her words hit me like a punch I wasn't prepared for. With her here? I echoed, panic rising. Who are you talking about? But she didn't answer. Instead, she got up and moved to the window, staring out as if the answer to everything might be waiting on the other side. Emma tugged at my hand, looking up at me with wide, anxious eyes, and I felt a surge of helplessness. My daughter, my wife, and I. 3 people in the same house, but suddenly strangers to each other, each carrying questions the others weren't ready to answer. I wanted to force the conversation, to demand the truth, but something in Sarah's rigid posture made me pause. It was as if she had already crossed a line I didn't even know existed. My mind raced, imagining every possibility, every hidden story that could explain the tension in her voice, the fear in Emma's eyes, the knot twisting in my chest. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. The quiet was almost unbearable, broken only by the soft sniffle of Emma trying not to cry. I knew then that the moment had come. The moment when our family could either unravel completely or cling to some fragile thread of understanding. But there was a barrier, invisible but real, between us, and I didn't know how to cross it without shattering something irrevocable. And then Sarah finally turned toward me, her face pale, eyes glistening with unshed tears. She opened her mouth, like she was about to say something that would change everything. But before she could, a knock at the door echoed through the house, a sharp, deliberate sound that made Emma jump and me freeze. And in that knock, I felt it, the first undeniable sign that whatever secret Sarah had been hiding wasn't just hers alone. It was about to come out, and nothing in our lives would ever be the same. The knock at the door hadn't stopped, and neither had my racing thoughts. Sarah stepped toward it, hands trembling, as if she could somehow hold back whatever was waiting outside. Emma clung to my arm, her small body stiff with fear. I moved closer, heart hammering. Sarah, who is it? I asked, though part of me already dreaded the answer. She swallowed hard, then opened the door. And there she was, the woman from the hug. But something was different this time. Her eyes were wide, panicked, and in her hand, she held a folder that seemed almost impossibly heavy for its size. Before I could react, she gasped, "You need to see this, it's about her." Sarah's face went pale, and Emma stepped back, sensing the tension spike. I wanted to reach out, to stop the chaos, but it was too late. The woman thrust the folder towards Sarah, and in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a hug or a misunderstanding. Whatever was in that folder, it had the power to change everything we thought we knew about our family, about trust, and about the life we'd been living. And the truth inside, I wasn't sure I, or anyone, was ready for it. Sarah hesitated for a fraction of a second, then took the folder from the woman's trembling hands. She opened it slowly, and my heart sank as I saw photographs, messages, and documents spilling out, evidence of something I could barely process. My eyes darted between Sarah, the woman, and Emma, whose small hands were still clutching my shirt as if holding on for safety. "Sarah," I began, but she raised a hand, stopping me. Her voice was quiet, almost broken. "You need to see everything before you judge me." The photographs revealed a truth I hadn't anticipated. Sarah had been protecting someone entangled in a situation far more dangerous than a simple workplace friendship. The woman from the hug wasn't just a colleague. She had been threatened, and Sarah had been helping her hide from someone who meant real harm. Every action, every hesitation, every look that had seemed suspicious now made sense in a twisted, frightening way. Emma's eyes widened as she realized her mother hadn't been acting strangely out of secrecy for selfish reasons, but out of fear and love. I felt my chest tighten, overwhelmed with a mix of relief and lingering tension. Then, just as I was about to exhale, the woman from the hug looked directly at me, eyes sharp, and said something that made the room go still. "There's one more thing you need to know. He's still watching." A chill ran down my spine. Suddenly, the carefully constructed reality of our family life shattered completely. What we had thought was the end, the full truth, was only part of a much larger, more dangerous story. And as Sarah pulled Emma close, whispering reassurances I couldn't fully understand, I realized that our lives had changed forever. The danger wasn't over. It was just beginning. The house was quiet again, though the tension still lingered like a shadow in the corners. Sarah sat on the couch, Emma curled up beside her, and I took a seat on the armchair opposite them, still trying to catch my breath. The folder had been set aside, unopened for now, as if the proof of danger itself needed a pause before we could confront it fully. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her, the woman I thought I knew perfectly. Her eyes were tired, but there was relief there too, a fragile sort of calm that told me she had made the right choices, even when I hadn't understood them. She reached out, and I took her hand, feeling the warmth that had always kept me anchored. Emma's small voice broke the silence. "Daddy, Mommy, I'm glad it's okay now," she whispered, her innocence like a balm over the chaos that had stormed through our lives just hours before. I pulled her into a hug, feeling the familiar weight of her tiny body against me, and realized how much I'd taken for granted. The simple moments of trust, laughter, and family that can be so easily shaken. Sarah smiled faintly, brushing Emma's hair back from her face. "It's okay, sweetheart. Everything that happened, we just had to make sure everyone stayed safe. And now we can move forward, together." For the first time that day, I felt a true sense of peace. Not the naive peace of a world untouched by secrets or fear, but the stronger peace that comes when you've faced the storm together and survived. I realized how fragile life could be, how easily misunderstandings and hidden truths can shake a family to its core. And I understood that trust isn't just built in the good times. It's forged in the moments when fear and confusion threaten to pull you apart. But even as we sat there, holding each other close, I couldn't shake the memory of the woman's final words, "He's still watching." A chill ran down my spine again. It wasn't the same immediate panic, but a quiet reminder that life sometimes leaves unanswered questions, that danger and uncertainty can linger just beyond the edges of comfort. And maybe that's the lesson we carried with us. That family isn't about perfection. It's about holding each other through the moments that scare you the most. It's about honesty, forgiveness, and the courage to face the unknown together. I kissed Emma's forehead, squeezed Sarah's hand, and whispered, "We'll be okay, no matter what comes." Emma smiled sleepily. Sarah gave me a small nod, and for that night, at least, the three of us were safe. The future was uncertain, the shadows outside our door still mysterious, but inside, we had each other. And sometimes, that's all that really matters. Even in the face of fear, the heart of a family remains unbroken.